You know, the security of our modern world, everything from our phones to our defense systems, it really relies on countless tiny, often invisible little parts. These are the strategic materials and critical minerals that are, well, the bedrock of our entire economy. But what happens when the supply of those essential ingredients is suddenly cut off?
It's a question a lot of us have probably felt lately, right? Maybe you try to buy a new car and they tell you there's a 6-month wait, or that new gaming console is just impossible to find. All of a sudden, these complex global systems that we count on just feel incredibly brittle. The answer, it turns out, is hidden deep inside these products, in supply chains that have become dangerously, dangerously vulnerable.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem. This list here from the U.S. Geological Survey is just staggering. For things like gallium, manganese, and rare earth elements, the minerals that are absolutely essential for the powerful magnets in electric vehicles and defense systems, the U.S. imports 100% of what it needs. This isn't just a small gap, folks. It's a total, absolute dependency.
So, in this explainer, we're going to break down this whole national challenge. First, we'll look at how these hidden ingredients create some very visible problems. Then, we'll dive into the dependency dilemma, check out a blueprint for resilience, try to understand the critical role of talent, and finally, we'll frame what might be the next great challenge.
All right, so let's get into how these supply chain issues actually show up in the real world. Because this isn't some abstract economic problem. It has real, tangible consequences for all of us.
The perfect example is the semiconductor shortage we all just lived through. These tiny silicon chips are basically the brains of all modern electronics, and they are in everything. Back in 2020, as demand shifted like crazy during the pandemic, automakers suddenly realized they couldn't get the chips they needed to finish building cars, and that led to massive disruptions in production.
And the financial toll? It was absolutely staggering. A White House report estimated that in 2021 alone, this one shortage cost the global auto industry $110 billion in revenue. It meant nearly 4 million fewer cars were built than planned. That is a huge economic shockwave from a component that can be smaller than your fingernail.
But here's the crucial point. That chip shortage, it was just a symptom of a much larger, much more systemic issue. And that is the dependency dilemma.
And here's a really key distinction. It's not just about who mines the materials, it's about who processes them. Look at this. China refines 60% of the world's lithium, and a mind-boggling 80% of its cobalt. These are the essential ingredients for the batteries that are going to power our future. That kind of control creates a massive bottleneck.
Now, this dependency isn't new. It's a trend that has been speeding up for decades. If you go back to 1954, the U.S. relied on imports for 21 key mineral commodities. Fast forward to 2019, and that number had almost tripled to 58. We have just steadily offshored the very foundations of our industrial base.
And it goes way beyond just raw materials. Think about the printed circuit board, that green board that every single electronic component is mounted on. Well, today, 90% of them are made in Asia, with China alone accounting for over half of all global production. That means the very platform for all modern technology is overwhelmingly concentrated overseas.
So how in the world do you fix a problem this vast and this complex? Well, the U.S. government has started to develop a comprehensive national strategy to begin rebuilding these critical supply chains, literally from the ground up.
The strategy really rests on 4 key pillars. First, you've got to rebuild our own manufacturing and innovation capabilities right here at home. Then, you have to invest in the skilled workforce to power it all. At the same time, we need to partner up with our allies to create stronger, more diverse global supply chains. And finally, we have to be ready to use powerful policy tools like the Defense Production Act to jumpstart production when it really matters most.
So what's it going to take to make this happen? Well, the administration is calling on Congress to back all these efforts with some truly transformative investments. We're talking to the tune of $50 billion just to get started strengthening these supply chains. This is not about patching holes. This is about rebuilding the entire foundation.
But factories and funding are only part of the equation. These reports really emphasize that the most important ingredient of all is people. And that brings us to what's being called the talent imperative.
This quote from a Department of Commerce report just lays out the challenge perfectly. The existing workforce in these critical fields is aging out. They're retiring. And we're facing intense global competition for that next generation of engineers, technicians, and researchers. The bottom line is, without the right people, new investments just can't succeed.
The reports also highlight this really powerful concept,
lost Einsteins. What this refers to is the vast, untapped pool of potential innovators, people from low-income backgrounds, women, underrepresented communities, who have all the talent in the world but just lack the access and the pathways to contribute. Tapping into this potential, that's a key to out-innovating our competitors.
So how do you actually build that pipeline of talent? The strategy calls for connecting all the dots. It means forging strong partnerships between companies, the government, and universities. It means creating targeted programs at community colleges and expanding hands-on apprenticeships. And yeah, it also means making sure we can attract and keep the best global talent to fill these essential skill gaps.
So when you put all these pieces together, the investment, the strategy, the talent, it frames this issue as way more than just an economic policy. It's really one of the defining national challenges of our time.
And this just reveals the stark competitive landscape we're in. For years, U.S. federal investment in semiconductor research has been just a tiny fraction of our overall R&D. Meanwhile, countries like China are doing the exact opposite. They are pouring massive state-directed subsidies into their domestic industries, all with the goal of owning the entire supply chain. Ultimately, this means that simply building a bunch of new factories just isn't enough. Real long-term success depends on creating a complete ecosystem, one that connects research and innovation, that nurtures a skilled workforce, and is backed by a sustained national commitment to lead in the technologies that are going to define our future.
So this leaves us with a pretty big forward-looking question. This isn't just a challenge for Washington or for Silicon Valley. It's a generational effort that is going to require new ideas and new leaders from every single corner of the country. In this global race for the building blocks of the 21st century, who is going to answer the call?